All right, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like the setup to a really, really weird joke, right? But what if I told you that the answer, the thing connecting all three, is a single, totally forgotten football team from the very first days of the NFL?
Yep, that's right. Today we are diving deep into the story of the Racine Legion. They were a founding NFL team from Wisconsin, and man, they burned bright, burned out super fast, and left behind one of the absolute weirdest legacies in all of pro sports.
So to really get a handle on the Legion, we've got to go way back. Back to the beginning, to a time when pro football was, kind of the Wild West. Teams changed their names like they changed their socks.
And just look at this timeline. It really shows you how chaotic those early years were. In just 7 years, this one team went through 4 different names. To kick things off in 1915 as the Racine Regulars, a local semi-pro club. But their identity started shifting, and fast.
And each of these names, they tell a little piece of the story. Battery C? That came about because a bunch of the players enlisted to fight in World War I. Then, after the war, they snagged 2 big sponsors, the local American Legion Post and a guy named William Horlick, who just happened to be the president of the company that invented malted milk. Yeah, you heard me right, that malted milk.
And here it is. This was their logo. That big, bold R for Racine. It's so simple, so classic, and it just perfectly sums up what they were. This tough, gritty, factory town team that was suddenly playing on the biggest stage.
And get this, for a little while, this team from a small town wasn't just on the national stage, they were one of its absolute brightest stars.
So in 1922, something huge happened. The American Professional Football Association officially renamed itself the National Football League. And guess who got welcomed in as one of the new franchises? The Racine Legion. They had finally made it to the big time.
So, how did they do, you might be wondering? Well, their entire first season can pretty much be summed up by one single number, 52. 52. That's how many points their fullback and kicker, a guy named Hank Gillo, put on the board. And that was enough to make him the top scorer in the entire NFL that year. Think about that. A player from tiny Racine, Wisconsin, was outscoring the legends from big city teams like Chicago and Green Bay. Incredible. And the team itself was super respectable. I mean, they finished 6th out of 18 teams in their very first year. They held their own for 2 more seasons after that. But then, 1925, the dreaded suspended operations. Yep, financial trouble had finally caught up with them, and it really looked like the story was over.
But it wasn't. The team was about to get one last, desperate shot at glory, under a brand new, and maybe even a little prophetic, name.
Okay, so flash forward to 1926. The NFL is in a bit of a panic. They're facing a threat from this new rival league started by the superstar of the day, Red Grange. The NFL basically just needed bodies, as many teams as they could get to keep players from jumping ship. So what did they do? They reactivated the Racine franchise.
The team was back in business, but the Legion name was gone. They were now the Racine Tornadoes. And their season played out exactly like a tornado, just tearing through and disappearing. They actually won their first game, which gave the fans a little glimmer of hope, but then, bam, they lost the next 4 straight. By the end of October, the money had run out and the team folded, this time for good. And, normally that would be the end of it, just another forgotten team that vanished almost a century ago. But this is where the story of the Racine Legion gets really weird. Which brings us to one of the absolute strangest final scores in the history of football, 10-4. Seriously, how does a team even score 4 points? The only likely way is through 2 safeties, which is already a super rare play. And a final score like this, it has never, ever been repeated. It happened on November 25th, 1923. The Legion beat the Chicago Cardinals 10-4. And to this day, it is still the only game in the entire history of the NFL where a team is finished with exactly 4 points. It's this one bizarre, incredible piece of trivia that belongs only to Racine. But wait, there's more. Their bizarre final score isn't even their only claim to fame. I want you to meet Milton Romney, a star quarterback who played for the Racine Legion. And yeah, that last name should definitely be ringing a bell. So here's the final piece of the puzzle. Milton, our quarterback from Racine, was the cousin of Michigan Governor George Romney. And it was Milton's nickname, Mitt, that actually inspired the family to give that same name to George's son, who would grow up to be the presidential candidate, Mitt Romney. No joke. So there you have it. Malted milk, a political dynasty, and a score that has never been repeated in 100 years, all connected by this one little team from Racine, Wisconsin. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other incredible stories just like this are buried in the chaotic, forgotten history of pro football?